I'm happy to welcome you to tonight's conversation with Pamela Kramlich in San Francisco. Pamela and her husband Richard Kramlich have been collecting time-based art since 1987. They are among the earliest and most important collectors of media art in the world. Today, the Kramlich Collection comprises over 200 film, video and media installation works and offers a unique survey of the importance of the moving image and audiovisual media in contemporary art over the last 50 years. In 1997, the Kramlichs engaged the Swiss architects Herzog and de Meuron to design a residence in Napa Valley as both a home for their art collection and a place to reside and welcome family and guests. We are very honored and grateful that Pamela Kramlich has accepted our invitation for this conversation. I would also like to welcome our audience on behalf of our partner Rolls-Royce and their art program, Muse. Fondation Beyeler and Rolls-Royce are partnering for an initiative to support moving image works created by emerging and mid-career artists. In the foreword of the recent publication about your residence built for the collection, you answered the frequently asked question, I quote, "Why a collection which focuses on media?" There are two basic reasons. Firstly, no one else that I knew of was doing this back in the mid-1980s. Secondly, it was the art that was inspired by a new paint box, one born from many of the innovations coming from the Silicon Valley. A good and helpful question to start with would be to ask about the first work that you acquired, The Way Things Go, from 1987 by Peter Fischli and David Weiss, the famous single-channel video that you encountered in that same year at Documenta 8 in Kassel, Germany. What was the fascination with this work at that time?
Well, thank you, Theodora. It's fun to be able to go back and realize the moment of excitement around this field. And it was going to Documenta with Jack Lane and John Caldwell, who were new to our museum in San Francisco. Actually, they had started the Carnegie International as a really wonderful art fair every 2 years in Pittsburgh. And they were excited about this work of art. So the three of us went down to a very cold cement room in the basement of a building in Kassel. And we sat on the floor and we watched this little video. And it was so enchanting, so much fun. It was it was something that I knew would inspire our friends to be able to look at it at a dinner party and have a conversation that would be different than business. And so I came home and we had this room in which we're sitting right now with a screen. And I thought, well, this is a perfect work of art to put on that screen during a dinner party, which is actually what we did. We came back to San Francisco. I asked John how I could buy that work of art. He said, call the Sonnabend Gallery. I did. Antonio Homem answered the telephone. I said, I'd like to buy this work of art. He said, it's $350. I said, well, can I use my MasterCard? And he said, yes. So I bought this work of art over the telephone for $350, and it started the entire collection. And it was that enchanting. It seemed so easy. And of course, it's been very complicated ever since then.
If you look at it today, because it never gets boring, this work, has the quality changed? Do you see different aspects in it than at the time?
Oh, I think it goes on with talking about how life changes, how things change, how there's uncertainty, there's magic, there's there's inspiration with every movement in that film. It makes you think about your own life and how the days unfold and how your life unfolds as you go through it.
Yeah, because I also think, looking back now on your collection and seeing this little work at the beginning, there's already so much of the experiment, of trial and error, of humor, of time, etc. So many things that became, I think, important when for your collection and for your decision to focus on time-based art. So that's why I think it's a wonderful start.
Well, the thing that we've had so much fun with it too, because it's something that enchants children, no matter what the age. You know, if it's a child watching it, they can have as much fun with it as an adult, you know, who's been through their lives. So it's very, I think it's a really magical work of art, a very important work of art, actually. A simple, maybe the simplest things are the most important things.
So today your collection consists of single-channel works, multi-channel installations, works combining objects and video, photographs, drawings with written concepts inducing time-based action, and so on. How did your interest for this kind of art grow into a collection? Was it your intention from the beginning on, or rather a slow becoming aware that the collection is growing?
Well, it was so much fun because in the days of SF MoMA, we had the inspiration through John Caldwell and Jack Lane and the trips that we took together to see other people's collections. And I think I found that our collecting community was growing, but nobody seemed to be collecting in this area. And so I thought if I were going to be a member of the museum and make a contribution, that I'd like to find an area where I could do something that was different. And no one was collecting this material at the time. And so because of Dick's interest in Silicon Valley and all the new companies that were coming along and all the technology that was happening, so much of it around the technology that we see the artists using today in their artwork, it seemed logical that I would be the one to collect in this area. So that's why I did it. And plus, I loved what I was seeing. I loved the work that was being done with, as you put it before, the new paint box.
Great. And I think that's an important, what you just said, it is very important that you and Richard had a kind of different approach to this media, because it was familiar. The technique was familiar to both of you. So it was not something really strange or unfamiliar. No. So I could imagine that that helped to have this courage to focus on this kind of art. Is it possible to name a criteria? I mean, or is for example, one important criteria intuition, something like love at first sight?
Well, John Caldwell was a wonderful teacher. And he told all of us at the museum that if we kept thinking about a work of art, whether it was negative or positive, if it bothered us enough to keep thinking about it, it was probably something we should go back and look at again, and maybe even something we should acquire. And so I listened to that quite a bit, because you don't want to live with something that you get tired of. So I wanted to live with things that I didn't get tired of, that kept me thinking and kept me growing as I learned more about that work of art. And I think it's true, the Fischli and Weiss work, as we were just speaking of it, does that. It grows with you as you go through your life. And so I think that's very much at the base of what we've collected. I love the work that I've collected. And I think it's because I keep wanting to look at them. The amazing thing is I haven't been able to see our collection all these years. I didn't have the chance to see it because we didn't have a space to put it. And so that, of course, inspired the architects to say to me, if we ever if you ever want a house for your art where you can live with your art collection, we would like to do it for you. And that sounded wonderful to me, and it has been a very exciting experience. It really was a longer journey than I think either of us thought would happen, but we've succeeded in having an amazing sculptural entity with an exhibition space that I think has proven to be what the collection needed.
Indeed. And I would very much like to come back to this a bit later, because I also wanted to say how impressing it was, but all other also, how you and your husband always came to see in real the works. You didn't just buy them because you have seen them in reproductions or maybe on TV or someone told you you must have it, but you were traveling around and just to see these works, and I must really say it was very impressive, because you both were from the beginning very serious and interested, and it's not just because you loved a work. Of course, this is crucial, but it's very important issues that come together that you love a work.
Well, and because we know how difficult it is to put these works up, you can't pull a painting off of a shelf like we can in a gallery with this work. You have to go to see where it's installed, and that's why even today, to go to a fair and try and buy a work like this at a fair is very difficult. Even though I think Unlimited has provided us an opportunity to see these works displayed correctly, it's still not the easiest situation. And so I think when the museums show them, and we are given the opportunity with the oversight of all the artists who are watching their works being installed properly, that's really where you want to go and see these works. And the installation and the sculptural aspect of the installation of these works, as has been pointed out by a number of people in the field, is as important as the work, is a very important component to the work. So you're right. I mean, it was one of those things that I felt in the very beginning, that when I had the opportunity to go see an exhibition of Bill Viola or Gary Hill, I wanted to go and actually see the works displayed the way they were supposed to be displayed.
It always seems to be a strong mutual relation between the content and the medium of time-based works in your collection.
No, I think we've been very lucky, because I think there have been people, for instance, if you think about William Kentridge, for instance, he's such a master of so many components that make up this kind of work, from his skill with drawing, but is also the technique of using his skills with a technology that does animation in a way that's just magical, and so I think it's been fun to watch how the artist has taken this technology and used it in so many different ways, and how we've been able to think that this really is the art of the future, because it's something that we can take from the museum walls into another format and distribute it, or have it, distribution is not a very good word, but have it appreciated in a much grander way than we have been able to share artwork before. I mean, we've been able to do it.
The sharing, yeah.
Yes, the sharing aspect of what we're involved in is something that's always appealed to me, and I think that that's why we even have had the New Art Trust, because I've felt that this work needs a wider audience.
You founded this in 1997.
Yes.
To support the distribution also of media work
Well, it was started in the beginning so that we could collaborate on the platform Matters in Media, which would be best practices for the purchasing. You know, how do you document the purchase of a work? How do you take care of it? How do you remaster it into the next technology to keep the work alive? And I felt that it was something that these three institutions would need to do together, because why should each one be navigating these questions alone? We could all do it together and maybe come up with really the best way to do things. And I think that the Matters in Media platform has been very helpful in that area all these years. It's now,
Yes.
I think, needing updating, and we've been talking about that because there's so many people around the world now worried about the same circumstances. So I'm looking forward to putting some energy in that direction.
In this context, in the light of the experience of the pandemic and its consequences, do you assess the significance of time-based art in a different way? Is it less significant or, on the contrary, enforced?
I think that yesterday we had a really wonderful session with a number of professors and from UC Berkeley. And we were all talking about the possibilities of this field becoming studied more intensely, because we've kind of been pushed off a cliff into by the pandemic into a new world of a need for seeing art in a different way. And so we've been talking about the other aspect that New Art Trust was also interested in, which was education. And so we've really been exploring the possibilities for having more art education online at a very high quality level. And I'm hoping that we can pursue that. It's been a dream of mine for a long time.
That's wonderful. So maybe we could now we did not yet talk really about the ever-changing technical challenges of this kind of art. And as I understand, with the acquisition of Tiananmen Square, breaking transmission from 1990 by Dara Birnbaum, the issue of installing a work became for the first time a real concern. May I ask you to briefly describe what happened then, probably for the umpteenth time, but it is such a beautiful example of your dealing with such a technical challenge.
The story is wonderful because we adore Dara. I think she's just such an extraordinary woman, and I think that her wisdom in picking that subject at the time was also something that we're realizing now is a work that is as important for this field as I think Guernica was for the painting world, actually. And we've seen this event happen as a kind of sort of echo of the first event happened just recently. And I think that we're all, I think, enchanted by what she did and how simply she put the idea together between these four screens and then consolidated those images on a old TV monitor, the way that the Chinese people would have been viewing that event from their own network. And of course, it's been very difficult to keep this work alive because it's on 4 very small monitors that really aren't being made anymore. So we've had to stockpile those monitors in order to keep the piece alive. I guess maybe we'll have to remake those monitors at some point. We are planning to show it in an exhibition at UC Davis this coming January. And so we've been working with Dara's studio to make sure that it is going to be installed the correct way. She's very particular, and she should be, about this work. And the students have had a course of study around learning the installation of this art form, and they are so excited about this exhibition. They call it their exhibition. which is
great.
great.
That's
and
great.
They're borrowing other works from our collection and including some works from their own interests. And so I'm really thrilled that these works are causing that kind of comment and interest among the young people, because I think this is the work of their time. It's talking about the issues of today, of and that's what I hope this collection represents, is that we've collected works along the way that really talk about the last 40 years and about the issues that are going to continue to occupy our interest going forward.
It seems to me that as if your home in San Francisco became a kind of test room for installing and living with time-based art. And then in 1997, you embarked on a new test room, the project with Herzog and de Meuron, that finally resulted in an extraordinary home for you and your collection. Could you give us an idea, a little bit, how it concretely relates to the works, to the collection, and how it is to live in? Because there is such a tight dialogue between architecture and art.
Well, I don't know that we have yet mined the, how can we say, the fantastic opportunity that we were given to work together. I still thank Cherise and Christian Mouax for introducing us to Jacques and Pierre. I think Cherise understood what I was trying to do instinctively. You talk about instinct. I think that she somehow felt that we would really enjoy knowing each other, and probably didn't know what would come out of it, but had a feeling that something good would come out of it. And I think she was right. It's been a journey, an amazing one. The work that they created is so perfect for this artwork, because it's really about light and dark that makes an image. So we have the dark space below the ground. We hid it because we didn't want a big monstrosity of a building on top of the ground in the Napa Valley. It didn't seem to make sense. So we have this dark space for all this artwork, which we need to have. And then we have this beautiful light box on the top, which you can do other things in. You know, we can put artwork up there, but we don't have any walls to put things on, or very few. So it has works like Namjoon Paik's TV Buddha, because we can put that in the light. And we have a work by Gary Hill up there, Cut Pipe, which we can put in the light. But other than that, we can't really. We have a screen where we can show single channel material that comes down in that space. We have a work by Matthew Barney. We have a glass work by Gerhard Richter, because it seemed that dialogue should happen within that box. And there's a daguerreotype up there, which is sort of a mirrored piece of the Taj Mahal, which basically is kind of what we've always thought of as this building is kind of our own little Taj Mahal, if you want. But it's been so much fun to put this together and realize that the thinking has been very consistent from the beginning. And I don't know how we did it, actually.
Well,
but one step at a time, like the Fischli and Weiss video.
Exactly,
really.
Exactly. That's really what it can remind you of. It's like a journey has to be, but you did it, and this is something very unique, really.
Well, it's so consistent with the collection. That's the thing that is such a joy, because we really needed exactly what we built, and I think that what we're doing right now, which I think Jacques and Pierre are going to be very excited when they see the end result of it, is we're building a cave, which of course is a consistent
yes,
image for the Napa Valley. We're not putting wine in it. We're going to put parking in it. but we wanted to hide the parking so that you wouldn't have any cars in front of this beautiful structure. And in it, we will have we have a work of Matthew Barney, a sculpture, so we'll have a work of his in the entry hall. And also there's a work of Martin Kippenberger in the collection, one of his subway stops, so that will be in the garage, which seems the appropriate place for that as well. So we're having a lot of fun with this cave, which I think will complete the project in a very appropriate way. I'm really excited about it, and we've been working with the office on the appearance of the exit so that it's consistent with the entire project. So we're right in the middle of that right now.
Wonderful,
so
wonderful.
Always we're not done yet.
If you are interested in a work, or even have it interested in a work, do you first get in contact with the artist, or can it also happen that you take it in your collection and then contact the artist? Is it dependent on this relationship with an artist?
Not really. I mean, when I think about it, I've fallen in love with the artwork first, usually.
Yeah.
And for instance, we have a situation occurring today. Actually, we have a visit by James Benning, whose work we bought from Nguyen Schneider several years ago. We walked into the gallery, and I started looking at this installation, and I loved it. And so we bought the installation in the gallery. And so this is the first time that I've never met him. He's coming this week, and it's going to be interesting for us to be able to talk about the work of his that we own, and for him to see where ultimately we'll be able to put it. So no, I mean, it's happened lots of different ways, but I know that we've also gotten to know Richard Moss, and I think that was after we met Richard through when Everett Coleman was working with us. He was from Ireland, and the two of them knew each other, and so we became engaged with that work. But we saw really the work before we met Richard, actually.
Uh-huh.
So and maybe it's a combination. I don't know. I mean, maybe there are incidences where we've met the artist first, but usually I've focused more on the artwork, because if it doesn't relate to me that way, then I won't be able to live with it for the long term. And then it's reinforced. When we meet the artist, it's usually reinforced that we were absolutely right about our instinct on loving the artwork.
That's good to know. Good. So, Pamela, would you like to add something?
I would just like to say thank you. You've been there on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.